It's Pi Day, March 14th. You're listening to today's episode, the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today, we're talking about Long Bright River. It was a book. Now it's a crime drama released in full by Peacock, 8 episodes yesterday, Thursday. The first episode is called These Girls. It's 50 minutes long and centers around a cop named Michaela Fitzpatrick, or Mikey, played by Amanda Seyfried. And the last time I remember delving into Amanda Seyfried's career was The Dropout back in like 2021, 2022. Also had
2022.
William H. Macy, right,
Yep.
in it. And she was playing Elizabeth
Holmes.
I was about to call her Elizabeth Theranos, but Theranos is the name of the company. She was a scam artist. She was pretending to be a genius, and she was getting all these investments. This is a very different character that she plays in this. Mikey is like kind of a cop, a loner. She doesn't like the partner that she has. She's a single mom. She's got a lot of like just overhanging issues, but the biggest one to her is that she's lost her sister, Casey, who was already a drug addict and living in a tent by the streets, but at least she got to see her every once in a while. Casey's disappeared. And there's all these girls who are ending up overdosed dead, but she has a suspicion that they are actually being murdered. And that suspicion is confirmed about 3/4 of the way through the episode when her only friend, really, besides the neighbor, is like this pathologist. And the pathologist tells her that like these people are ODing, but on insulin. You know, like diabetics receive a lot of insulin. You know what that reminds me of? In the first season of Prison Break, so many years ago, he had to fake being diabetic so that he could get into the unit, the healthcare unit.
I remember, yeah.
And so like he needed to take insulin, but at the same time, some other thing to like make sure that he also glucose to make sure that he stayed in the diabetic range so he could keep on getting it. The first time he got it, he started to feel sick because of a response to the insulin. So you can overdose on it. And so that's how these people have been going into sort of a seizure.
But that was one of the biggest changes from the TV series to the book, is that in the book, all these people are dying from strangulation. In the TV series, they decided to change it to insulin.
Yeah, because I mean, one is okay for cops to kind of like ignore it if they're just seeing a lot of ODs from these people who clearly have drug addictions. The other one, if you're seeing a bunch of people strangled, I understand it's easy to wipe people under the rug when they're not necessarily big members of society, ones that like would like they even mentioned it several times in the show, how they're in the part of Philly that doesn't get a lot of talk.
They're in Kensington?
Yeah, but the other part that they brought up was like if this was in that area, then it would be front page.
Right.
So
that's kind of the big thing about this show, is that Kensington, Pennsylvania, that's where Liz Moore, the person who wrote the book, is from. She wanted a place in Pennsylvania. She's been living there for 16 years, and she was really, really focused, especially with her past, on addiction.
So many television shows that we've reviewed based off books have the third main character be the setting, from Dark Winds to expats to like you name it. Usually the author likes to bring in a lot of their own reality. So that's not a surprise. It is a kind of a surprise that our next show that we're planning to review also is a crime drama based in Philly.
Yeah, there's been 3 TV series. You're talking about Dope Thief.
I am talking about Dope Thief.
But there's also this one. And then I believe Hulu's Deli Boys also is a crime series that's coming out in the next couple days, placed in Philly also.
Philly's very big. Like, I'm going to just take a look at their population right now. It says 1.551 million. And when they started talking about the amount of overdoses that they see each year in that part of the city, it was like over 1,000, and so that's multiple ones a day.
Yeah.
You know, it's not surprising that there's like 3 here that she suspects to be actual murders that would just get wiped under the rug and no one would ever think about them again. So she has it basically confirmed that she's on the right agenda. However, she's running her own unsanctioned op at this point. Her sergeant in charge is not giving her the leeway to go off and run this investigation. He's told her the exact opposite. He said, like, stick to the job. You're sticking with your partner. The partner is also sort of against the whole idea of, you know, going against policy. Yet one of my biggest cons of the show is just that Mikey spends so much of her cop day doing things like hanging out with the pathologist she's not asked to do, taking her partner to like her old playground just to like explain why she's into or why she feels sympathy for these girls, or running her own investigation.
Time kind of talked about this. I wanted to get your feeling on it. They said Mickey embodies a recognizable archetype, the righteous female
You
cop
say archetype, I
protagonist.
say archetype.
Archetype, the righteous female cop protagonist, like conflicted woman in blue at the center of Mayor of Easttown, True Detective, Night Country, Under the Bridge, and many others.
Well, you would know Under the Bridge, so
Yeah,
you can tell me. But that was Under the Bridge was based on a actual journalist who was
right.
there, right?
And I don't think the journalist was a cop in that, but I think they're mostly just talking about kind of the female cop who's like going against the
She was a
grain.
journalist
Because
because she got inserted into the show
but
as a
in
journalist.
Under the Bridge, there was also the cop, like one cop I remember that
Who's
they
her friend
gave.
or not?
I think she had a thing with.
Oh, I think was that the person who was added, like who wasn't actually there?
Yeah, who wasn't actually there, but they like decided to give her all the stuff from the actual book.
So is Time just saying this is a normal crime drama? Because that's where I'm going with it. It's
Yeah.
like I'm glad that it has a focus. I'm glad that for the next few episodes, you can really just hone in on, is she going to find her sister? Is the sister going to be alive? Is she going to be safe? Is her kid going to be safe? But I haven't seen too much in this show yet, despite the fine acting, that really like separates it between any other crime scene. It reminds me a lot of like a Harlan Coben book where it's just so formulaic. Big Sky, same instance. There was a kidnapping in that storyline where I only ever saw that one episode of it, but it also felt like it was that one got a little crazy, but it felt very formulaic up until that point, up until the ending.
So in the pilot, what you're saying happens is that Mickey, this cop,
Yeah.
she realizes that there is a string of deaths in the area. All
Well,
of them deal
she
with.
knows all of the people in that 10 city. So there's like all, and mostly the women. She knows all the drug addict women there, and she knows them by a first name basis. She goes Jeannie, Helen, Mary, Nicole, Paula, and then only after that it's Casey who she's looking for. There's a lot of names they come throwing
Well,
at us with.
Casey in the book was the first character that Liz Moore actually came up with. And then she was like, who would be a polar opposite to her? And then she was like, you know what? That's why I made Mickey.
There's a scene where in the flashback, she's with her sister. Her sister's getting arrested. She's the cop on duty with her partner at the time. And this partner is her mentor. And she asks for her to be let go. But before that happens, when they're inside the store where her sister's getting arrested from, her sister's on the ground. She's holding a birthday card. She's having an episode. And then she stands up because she's about to be handcuffed. And they do a shot with both Amanda Seyfried's character and the sister next to each other against a mirror where it's like they're two polar opposites. And for the split second, I was like, am I about to realize like they just stuck a wig on Amanda Seyfried and she's playing both characters? Like this is going to be some sort of TV show like that. They are. We found out later that they're sisters. It makes a lot of sense. This could just be a path that she could have gone towards had she made some worse decisions in her life. And the whole premise of all the conversations she has with her son in this episode, her son's name is Thomas, is all about how decisions factor so heavily. And if you make the wrong decision, the devil's going to get you. And it's almost impossible to get back.
I know that Casey and Mickey, they're supposed to be foils. That's even what Liz Moore said.
That's what I'm saying is the shot they showed there. It's on your nose. And it's also very preachy. The amount of times that for someone who doesn't want therapy and who doesn't want to really deal with anybody else's help, like she really, really is resistant against that despite needing it, she's very preachy and easy to say like, oh, you need to go get someone's help. Like she wants to offer advice, but she doesn't ever want to take advice. And that was it makes it hard to empathize with her as a
So you said that she has problems with the cop that she's working with. What are some of the Lafferty, yes. What are some of the things that he does?
He has GERD, which he says several times. This was one of the few comic moments where he kept on like kind of annoying her because he kept on mentioning his dating life and GERD. He's just a 45-year-old older cop who got stuck with her when she lost her other partner. And he's just not as sympathetic as she would like coming to these like junkies that they're looking at and trying to take care of. He's shown he likes pizza. And he's got like a good heart, but he just doesn't understand where she's coming from. At the same time, she has her own issues. Like she freezes up a lot in the field. And I just feel like maybe she's not cut out.
Like while she's having to arrest someone?
No, when they come across a dead body and she thinks it might be Casey because it's the red hair, she freezes. Lafferty has to be the one to make the call in. And she's just standing there and apparently spouting out like her ex-partner's name. Her ex-partner is Truman, right? And we haven't heard exactly what happened to him. It's inferred that he got into some form of accident. And by the end of the episode, because she thinks she's being followed by this red truck, she goes running back to his place with her, 8-year-old kid. And they go inside, I think. But we don't see him in the present storyline quite
Is
yet.
there any chance that Mickey is an unreliable narrator?
No, because it's not. That's it's an interesting thought, but we also see things outside of her perspective, like her sister is alive. She doesn't know that,
Right.
and she's not telling us the story, even though sometimes she narrates it. You know,
She narrates it?
yeah,
Okay.
so her voice will overtone, or what they'll do is that they'll have her talking to her kid and use that narration over clips of her doing other things, if that makes sense. And so yeah, we learn a lot about these characters. I think her main thing with Lafferty is he's just not as cool as Truman was. She doesn't have the same connection.
Could it be because it seems like the things you said about Lafferty, it doesn't actually seem like there's that much of a problem with it. It just seems like she was so connected to the Truman
He makes a
character.
passing, yes, that's a big part of it. And he makes a passing statement about like, oh, maybe it's for the best that these people just died this way. Something really off-putting, and it really like affected her. But that's later on in the episode, and she takes him then to her old like recess playground to see the kids, and she's like, "This is where I'm from. You can't talk like that." Even though there's a lot of the times in the show when she's talking to her kid, she's straight up saying like, "You can't turn back. Some people don't deserve help," and stuff like that. So she's going through her own war within herself, and that's what we're supposed to take from it. It's just overbearing, and they repeat that sentiment 50 minutes through the 50 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, it seemed like she was also like when they kept on cutting to the kid, it just kept on seeming like they were talking about school like the whole time. It didn't seem like we ever got anything kind of past that.
Well, I mean, the storyline between the kid and her, like, what do you really expect them to delve into? I don't even think the book would care too much. She's not going to solve the whole crime of her sister with the kid on her shoulder. That guy is just there to sort of add more emphasis to her character development, I think.
So you said that it's kind of slow, that it's preachy, kind of hammers you over the head with things. What are some of your other cons?
I said it spends a lot of time with her not doing her exact job. Her sergeant is kind of curmudgeon-y, so he's the classic dude there, but you'd think he'd be more on her back about this. She has those panic attacks, which you would think not just suggesting she go to therapy, but saying you're off the clock until you go to
Right.
therapy. I feel like my con was that I thought that maybe this would be too close to the book, that they were trying to do too close to an adaptation. And then you told me that the showrunner or the co-creator is the book
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
writer,
Liz
and this is
Moore.
the one of her first times doing that. So I would assume that probably plays a factor in why it's not the best adaptation I've seen of a book. Um, and then it also felt like a lot of the instances when she was trying to get information from people, whether it be Paula or the neighbor, they would kind of tell her everything up front. And then she would keep on arguing with them. And then they would reveal the smallest, tiniest bit of information after she pulled a lot of teeth, something that they could have said at the very top that they really, there was no reason to hold back other than to waste time. And one of them was exactly the date that her sister disappeared. Like if you knew that off the top of your head, just
That would be
tell
like the first
just
thing,
tell
I
her.
feel like.
I mean, I know that they have drama against each other, but Paula should have just told her that. And then the other thing was the neighbor uh, kept saying that not her husband, but someone had kept coming to visit. She assumed it was her ex, and it wasn't. Instead, it was the red truck guy, and the neighbor only decided to say it was a red truck after the second conversation at the very end.
Yeah, because doesn't she at the beginning of the episode, she kind of I don't wanna say brushes it off because I know you already said that, but she was talking, she was like, he was so sure that it was her ex the whole
It's not the
time.
beginning of the episode. There was a part where the kid was coming home from school. She was with her kid. The neighbor comes out and said, "Someone was looking for you. He was a handsome dude." And then the son automatically said, like, "Dad," because the son misses his father, who apparently is a deadbeat dad, left them, maybe for another family. I think she actually does go and like stalks where her ex is now. Another time that she was on the watch when she was doing that. I think she was in uniform. So she's really got to like separate herself from that. The one bit of good police work at the beginning, they stumbled across a dead body, and this was after she came out of her shock of not realizing it wasn't Casey. went over to the victim, opened its mouth, realized that it was a homicide because there was blood in the mouth as opposed to foam. Sometimes, obviously, people can bite their tongue and there'd be a little bit of blood, but like this is just a real. It was her first impression of like this is not just a normal OD.
I know that Amanda Seyfried and Liz Moore shadowed cops like back in January 2024, and
After she'd written the book?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and they even stumbled across a dead body. So I think that
Yeah. I mean, Lafferty is still sort of a stereotype. So is the Sergeant Ahern. He is a stereotype. Not a lot of other good cops shown, except for her past partner, Truman, and her when she's not freaking out, she's able to diagnose things. But there's some weird, like, amount of names that we didn't necessarily need. We didn't need G-Pop to explain why there wasn't a lot of family in her past. That's the granddad. We didn't need Bethany, who was like the babysitter of the kid when she was away, who's just always on her phone. Carmichael is a parrot. I guess the parrot was cool. We'll keep the
I
parrot.
know that with the grandfather that you were talking about, they for some reason they did a sex change from the book to the TV series. It was the grandmother in the book, but here it was the grandfather, and he has a larger presence in the story in the TV series than that character did in the book.
I mean, he's definitely the type of old dude casting where it's like in my day, because he starts out like if I'd kissed my grandpa, then I'd be whipped silly, that type of thing. The show isn't great. I have to give it just a 5 out of 10. It's not the acting is there, nobody's just calling it in. And I think that it's nice that it has a focus that she's about to find her or trying to find her sister, but it's nothing special. It's just routine boilerplate stuff. It reminds me the most of The Killing, just because the atmosphere, the rain, the dreariness, the partners being kind of at odds with each other for a lot of the series. But eventually, they're going to become friends, kind of like an Arlen Coben book. And obviously, we're going to find out more about whether or not she ends up with Truman as a love interest or not.
So you're not gonna watch the rest of the
No,
8
no, 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 no,
episodes?
not absolutely not.
They
No.
did local casting from Philly, so even some non-actors had their first roles in this. It has a 64% on Rotten Tomatoes. The AV Club was very positive and gave the series an A-, but the Hollywood Reporter said, I feel kind of what you're saying. Seyfried and Cummings are admirable and rewarding, but not even they can make you forget how much better this too long, insufficiently bright journey could have been. Well,
Insufficiently bright.
yeah.
So is that just saying too dark and they just want
Well,
to be
the
nice?
long, bright river, right there.
Oh,
But that was
okay.
actually a question I had because it seems like this is, like, as you stated, very dreary. Is the title, do you think, trying to be, like,
I just
contrasting?
figured the title had something to do with the place, the setting, or that I would learn about that later, I am curious why someone would be killing all these girls and then have one just hanging around in his basement. So he's not just killing them, he's kind of keeping them, but then decide to start stalking the cop of this who's the sister of the one that he decides to keep alive. It's very
It's
convoluted if you
rem
look at it that way.
it's reminiscent of Deadlock and
Unless you
also Presumed Innocent.
Yeah, my assumption is that we're gonna find out that the red truck guy isn't the main villain or something, because it would be too simple if we already knew that's the bad guy right at the front.
I don't think I don't think that a TV show has ever done that where the first person is actually the
Well, not
person
a
that's
TV show
deaf.
based off, like, actual source material. If you're telling me that book just leads to the catch of the person they've outlined in the very beginning. Also, the fact that she was proven right about the pathology that all these women died from insulin poisoning as opposed to drug overdoses of like heroin or opioids. That alone, I feel, would be enough for the cop to start an investigation saying, we do have a murderer out there, and she can either head it up or she goes to therapy, like one of those two options. Uh,
I'll end it by saying that after the first 3 episodes were written between Liz Moore and Nikki Toscano, they gave it to Amanda Seyfried. She always wanted to play a cop, and she was from Pennsylvania, so she accepted it. She said she would be up for season 2, but it seems like this is it because this is a limited series and there'd be no source material afterwards.
it was interesting. She plays the flute in the series, and I know she's a musician in real life, and she plays weird instruments too. She doesn't like the flute that she was playing isn't the traditional like horizontal one. It had like a long reed to it, so it was more like a clarinet. And I saw that Jimmy, what was it, Fallon thing that went pretty viral a while back where she was playing like a weird guitar sideways or something.
Did I mention that she also listened to the book while she was filming The Dropout because a producer told her to? They even have the same costume designer from The Dropout in this.
Oh, okay. Well, she looks the same in everything she does, so that makes sense. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.